Hello Year 10 and welcome back. Welcome to the Health and Social Care Study Hub. Now I'm going to be setting for you a series of videos for you to watch, and all of these videos are designed to support your learning at home in the fact that you'll have some direct teacher input from me, which hopefully will make things a little bit easier for you in terms of your studies. Now today we're going to introduce you to some new work. That new work is going to be based around the BTEC component 2. Specifically Learning Aim A. And Learning Aim A looks at care values. So by the end of our session today, hopefully you will have gained much better understanding of what those care values consist of. So you should understand what a care value is in health and social care and be able to list all 7 of them, outlining 2 in particular. And the 2 that we're going to look at today are actually empowerment and independence of individuals, what they actually mean as terms, and then why they are so very important within the context of health and social care. So then, what is a value? How would we define that? A value is a belief about what is important in our lives, why it's important to us and the community in which we live. Now, everybody working within the field of health and social care as a staff member, and that could be a variety of different jobs, be it a senior manager or a frontline carer. Everybody working in health and social care must have the inbuilt inner belief to practice these care values in their everyday job. So it's not something that just appears as a list and people look at the list every so often. Valuing individuality is at the heart of practicing the 7 care values. So as with all of our lessons, we're going to use a series of key words and key terms within this component, and we will actually refer to them within the component 2 coursework, both A and B. So it's really important today that we familiarise ourselves with those terms so that we can use them effectively and within the right context. So what are those 7 care values that we've already looked at? They're a series and a set, if you like, of rules that we must abide by in all health and social care work. So whatever job people do in health and social care, it's really important that these 7 rules are practiced. Now, it's our job to ensure that each individual who comes to a particular service gets a really high standard of care, and that care maintains their physical and emotional well-being at all times, and that is really paid close attention to. And this is really important in terms of health and how people feel, because people may avoid a service and get very ill over the long term if they don't go to that service. So people's situations, people's health conditions may spiral into something worse if they don't seek help early enough and they don't seek out that early intervention. So another key term that we'll have a look at is a person-centred approach, person-centred care. What does that actually mean then in this context? We'll have a look. Person-centred care means that an individual is at the centre of all care discussions between staff and with that person themselves, and that their complete pies, we know that to be holistic health and wellbeing, and their complete pies care should be at the forefront of any care job. They must be valued as a unique individual, respected and given many choices and control over their lives or their treatment as possible. So it doesn't matter what they present at, whether they're poorly, if they're old, if it's a child in a children's ward, or if it's a victim of domestic violence, or if it's somebody practicing a particular religious faith. It's very important at the centre of this care that we shouldn't make judgments and that we should value the individual as an appreciated human being, and also see that person very much as an individual. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about personalised care and person-centred care, I've put together some hyperlinks within my own video for you to watch. It may be useful for you to just deepen your understanding of that and see that how it plays out in a real life scenario. So let's have a look then. We mentioned at the start as one of our objectives that we would be able by the end of the session to very much define the 7 care values. And the first one of those that we're going to look at today is empowerment and promoting independence. The second one is maintaining confidentiality. The third one is safeguarding and duty of care. Care value number 4 is promoting anti-discriminating practices. Number 5 is using techniques for effective communication. Number 6, nearly to the end of the list now, preserving dignity, and that dignity is preserved in all circumstances. And that number 7, to round off that list, is respect for other people in the way that we would come into contact with them. Now, as part of component 2, learning aim B, and we've mentioned this several times in class, you are going to take part in 2 separate role plays, where you're going to have to demonstrate each one of the care values and include them in the role play that you organise and script. So it's really important that you've got a good understanding of these so that you can do a good job to demonstrate them when it's your turn. So let's have a look then at each one of these on an individual basis. So there are references to this within the Health and Social Care BTEC revision guide. So if you see page links going through these PowerPoints, those are the pages that link up to the particular terms and that are covered within the book and within my PowerPoint. So empowerment then, first of all, what does it mean to empower somebody? If we look at the centre of that word, we've got the word power there, right at the slap bang in the middle of the word. And essentially, it means to give somebody who is vulnerable, and we can all imagine people who can be quite in a vulnerable position in health and social care, that we give that person as much control and power over their own lives as possible, no matter how limited their abilities are because of age or a language barrier or ability. People must be consulted to have their say, and health and social care workers must very much consult in terms of including the views of service users. So let's have a look then at several of these images here that are going to flick up onto the screen in a moment. Now, there are 4 different images there, and if we pause the video perhaps at this point and we reflect and we think, from all of these pictures, who do you think in these images is powerful? And contrast that against someone who you think might be vulnerable. Now, those 2 words are pretty much flip side opposites to one another, aren't they? So if somebody is powerful, they're pretty much in control and they're able to make their own decisions. And the flip side to that is that people are having those decisions and those choices made for them. So study those images. They're quite different images, aren't they? There's a mixture of different life stages and client groups there, and just pause and have a reflection on who you think might be the most powerful out of the 4. How might these people feel as a result of their level of empowerment in the way that other people in that image are treating them or are caring for them? Now, empowerment in its essence is enabling service users, that word enabling, to take some control over their own lives. And again, there's another clip built into this section of the video if you want to have a deeper understanding of how empowerment works within health and social care itself. So what does it mean then? It means that professional care workers will not undertake the following: make decisions completely for the service user, and not put service users in a position where they do not feel they are contacted or consulted, and that they wouldn't take actions that reduce the service user's dignity, and also that they wouldn't do anything that is against the service user's rights. So empowerment language, the language that we use in health and social care, is really, really important, and the way that we apply language as a form of communication. How do we empower service users through the use of our language? And it's quite interesting to see the words that we would take for granted in an everyday context. And if we switch those words when we use those words in health and social care, how they can put a different slant on empowering individuals. So, for example, don't use the word help. Replace the word help with assist. And if we put that into a question, do you want any assistance? Rather than, can I help you? And why do you think that is in terms of empowerment? How using the word assist instead of help do you think would that empower a service user? So imagine a dressing scenario. If somebody is getting dressed, if they have arthritis and they're struggling to put on something like a top or a cardigan, the word assist there might give that person a little bit more power behind making their decisions on how they get themselves dressed, that they're not just having that activity performed for them. So as carers in health and social care, it's important that we don't just assume that somebody needs help. Over caring can also be very disempowering. So imagine the scenario of cutting up someone's food in an old people's home if they struggle. Just say, give me a shout if you'd like me to do anything, or you'd like me to do that for you later. Why? Why do you think that would be important in that context? Why do you think it would be important not just to go ahead and assume that that person would want that level of assistance, would want their food to be cut up straight away? Why would it be empowering to that person to consult them on whether they would want that to go ahead? Now, you'll need to remember things like this for your role play, about how you would empower your case study role play service user, because there are two that you'd need to consider, both from different life stages, one from the teenage life stage and also latterly one from older adults. Now, people also can have what's called an advocate to accompany them. And some people choose to have advocates with them at their appointment. So really vulnerable people can be empowered by using an advocate scheme. It's usually something that isn't available immediately. It's something that usually has to be pre-arranged, let's say pre-arranged for a hospital appointment. But certain charities also will send advocates along, particularly if the information that the service user or the client is receiving is quite difficult to understand or it's quite complicated, so that that advocate can go along with that person to explain the treatment or explain what is actually being said. So being ill, frail, young, have poor communication skills and a lack of confidence means meeting in services can sometimes be very intimidating to some individuals. So an advocate helps in a really practical way. The advocate can speak for you or with you, having spent one-to-one comfortable time talking things over with you in meetings, etc., or after those meetings have taken place with health and social care professionals. Let's have a look then now at promoting independence. Independence is about having control over our own lives and being able to do these things for ourselves, not always having to rely on somebody else to do it for us. So just as a brief task now, you might want to pause the video and have a think about the following questions. So we often take these questions for granted. So have a think about when you're getting ready in the morning. Have you chosen your own toothpaste? Hopefully you haven't had somebody else to squeeze it onto your brush for you. Have you made your own bed, or have you had that activity performed for you? Have you put all of your items of clothing in a central laundry basket, or has somebody come along to pick those up after you? Do you sometimes cook your own food and provide your own snacks or meals? All of these questions help to give you an idea about how independent you actually are as an individual. Have you chosen not to wear what to wear? Not necessarily your school uniform, as that decision pretty much is taken for you. Consider all of those things and consider then how independent you are as an individual. So do we take our independence for granted? Why is independence then so very important? So a little scenario here for you. Hopefully this doesn't happen. We don't want any trips to A&E anytime soon. How would you feel if you broke both arms and a carer came along to wash and sort your hair? How about if at breakfast time at 7 a.m, your breakfast was just put in front of you with the expectation that you would like what you were served with and you'd be grateful for it? How would that also make you feel? So there's some research available on this, that if an older person in particular has a carer that chooses and makes those decisions about what they wear, depending on the weather, and chops up their food as they take a long time to eat, eventually, over time, that person will start to give up and lose motivation and feel an altered state of happiness as a result of having those decisions and their independence taken away from them. So overall, now we've had a really, really good overview of the 7 care values. So hopefully now, in the work that I'm going to send through to you, you're going to be able to tell me and write me the 7 care values, and I'm going to set you some case study context-based questions, which hopefully you'll enjoy, in relation to empowerment and individual independence and why that's really important. Now, looking at some of the images, flicking all the way through my video today, we're going to focus, which I think is quite important to focus on, empowerment and independence for the older life stage. So there will be a case study, a short case study, where you're going to have to consider the PIEs of the individual and how their independence and empowerment is considered by the care worker, or as you'll read through, perhaps not. So this is the first of our videos on care values, and hopefully this has given you a good overview and introduction to the extent that you'll be able to complete the work that goes along with it for today. Thank you, Year 10.